26. And we have a rather unique show, as it were, our town hall this week. In about 45 minutes, we're going to be joined by Nick Bryant. And Nick Bryant has been one of the leading researchers and investigators of Jeffrey Epstein. He, I think, started working on the Jeffrey Epstein case back in 2011. And rather famously, he ended up basically acquiring Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book. And he has done a lot of work with a number of the other leading researchers. And he became very close to Virginia Giuffre and traveled the country with her doing investigative work about Epstein. And I've seen him on a number of interviews. I find all of his insights to be quite fascinating. He also is someone is a researcher on the lives of American children who live in poverty. And he's very insightful on that as well. Before that, we are going to hear from our PDA endorsed candidate in a congressional race in Oregon, and that is Melissa Byrd, and she is challenging incumbent Val Hoyle. And it's just going to be very exciting to hear from Melissa, learn about her campaign, and everybody on the call will have an opportunity to support the campaign. We'll make available a link so that people can make split donations so that you support Melissa's campaign and also support PDA in our efforts to help elect Melissa. So for us right now at PDA, we have a lot of elections coming up. Obviously, the primary occurred in Illinois last week on Tuesday. The results were a little better than just live to fight another day. I became very focused upon what I thought would have been a terrible result if that the most conservative Democrat, pretty much in the whole Illinois congressional delegation, would replace Dick Durbin as a senator. And, that's for a 6-year term, only 100 members of the Senate, 435 members of the House. I estimate a Senate seat is about 13 times more political weight than a House seat. And there were 5 open House seats. And while no, out and out sort of squad progressives won in any of those 5 seats, there was a real risk because of the absolute avalanche of money that came in from super PACs, conservative leaning super PACs, that we would have conservative candidates win in a number of those seats. And even the one candidate that we hoped wouldn't win, who was backed by AIPAC, um, on most issues will slot in as a progressive. And that is in the seat where our endorsed candidate, Robert Peters, was defeated. Um, Relatively progressive, but not the leading progressive voice, will be replacing Jan Schakowsky. That's not a fortunate replacement. And then I think also the young politician, Mr. Ford, who's replacing Danny Davis. On balance, his voting record will be very similar, but isn't as progressive as Danny Davis was originally as a politician. So, mixed results. And the woman the lieutenant governor who was able to defeat Raja Krishnamurti, who I was very much hoping would not win, and we at PDA really launched a campaign, an anybody but campaign, and supported Juliana Stratton, and was happy to see her win. I certainly think that Juliana Stratton actually will probably slot in the more progressive half of the U.S. Democratic Senate caucus. So it wasn't a disaster, but it really showed that the 2026 primary season has begun, and it is defined by the incredible amounts of conservative money pouring into these races. Amounts of money that were never seen, nothing even close to it, as recently as 4 years ago in almost any congressional seat in the country. So these are overwhelming amounts of money, and the amount of information that can flood campaigns is very impactful. So we're going to have to contend with that, and we'll be back on the primaries, of course, with Melissa in a few minutes, but we'll be focusing on a whole range of candidates. The next set of primaries around the country are not until May 5th. And of course, we also have No Kings. And the big No Kings demonstration is taking place next Saturday across the country. This is the third, I think, of the mass No Kings demonstrations. I think there was one earlier that also would have qualified as that, but it really, really hit its marks. Uh, two times ago, and then the last time, and now we're expecting even larger crowds across the country on Saturday, March 28th. And I, of course, will be attending here in Los Angeles, and I hope everybody here will be able to attend a No Kings demonstration next week. Um, you know, since the last No Kings demonstration, the amount of damage that Donald Trump's presidency, I always call him Donald King, presidency has done to this country, it just piles on top of its everything else. The damage is legion at this point, and the danger is legion. Writing about this, I'm preparing a pamphlet that will be released on Sunday, um, to be distributed at certain No Kings demonstrations. If anybody's interested in getting copies of that, contact me. But pretty much, it's going to get published, and it'll be available probably in Los Angeles and Massachusetts. And the reality is, as much as his poll numbers go down, we're dealing with a situation where these authoritarians control the balance of the levers of power at the national level. They are backed by the wealthiest oligarchs the world has ever known, and they have absolutely no compunction about stealing elections. And that's really what we have to overcome this year. And in a little while, we'll be hearing from a candidate who we hope will be winning her primary and running in the general and entering Congress in January, running in a state where we can have a good amount of confidence the election will be honest. Actually, Oregon's been one of the leading states in the country in actually spearheading progressive voting measures, and they'll hold to those, I think. But in many other states across the country, we really could be facing difficulties in early November, and we will be preparing for that across the year. So, before we go to Mike Fox with our PDA to-dos for this week, let's go to the great Donna Smith, who is joining us. And your thoughts for the
I
week,
wonder
Donna?
if you could repeat that, the great Donna
Oh,
Smith.
you're the super great Donna Smith.
Not so much. God. Um, thank you, Alan, and thank you for the intro. I left
Mhm.
the picture on behind me. That picture is from 1979.
Wow.
And talking about kids, those are my six children. And I'm there, but I never know which way to lean. That's me.
Wow.
Dealing with my six little ones when I was protesting on the Capitol steps in Colorado all by my lonesome about child support enforcement law. And
Mm,
at the time, the Uniform Reciprocal Child Support Enforcement Act had just been passed that allowed states to cooperate on collecting child support. But in the meantime, a Cook County judge had let my ex off the hook for $60 a month for paying child support. And I thought that was ludicrous. So I did my own press. I'm telling you this story because I know you can all do this too. Now, I did my own press. I sent out little notes to newspapers and to, I didn't know much about doing it at that time. I was pretty young. I was only 25. And I sent those out. And to my surprise, United Press International, which was still operating at the time, showed
mm,
up. This is a Getty image. The Denver Post showed up. The Rocky Mountain News showed up. And so if you think your voice doesn't matter, don't think that way. Don't ever think that way. I don't know what happened in my upbringing that I never thought that you shouldn't protest. I always thought that this democracy meant you stand up when things aren't right and you say something and you speak up so that the next person who comes along won't face the same thing that you did. So now we fast forward almost 50 years later, right? And this past week, I've been fighting with my local party officials a bit. And I know some of you may have experienced things with your local and state parties too. Just because we are Democrats doesn't mean we always love what our parties do, right? And because PDA has always operated in the inside outside strategy, I darn well plan to hold my local and state party to account when they need to be held to account. And so I've written a Substack. Those of you who follow me on Substack can read a little bit about it. I'm trying to be very judicious about what I say because we know these are tender times for a lot of candidates, right? You don't want to pull any candidates into some controversy they don't need. But right now, I'm not a candidate. So I can do and speak and tell our local party that every person's voice in the Democratic Party matters, every single one. And sometimes, I don't know if you've experienced this, our party can act as though the people who are the big donors and the people who are most in the best neighborhoods, they are the ones that they'll really kowtow to and spend a lot of time um, trying to get them on board. And they forget there's an awful lot of voters, more of us, who are living either benefit check to benefit check or paycheck to paycheck or not making it paycheck to paycheck. And they forget that sometimes. So that's why I'm reminding you all, even if you got to be alone, and you won't be next Saturday with No Kings, you will not be alone. You will be with thousands of people who also give a damn about what's happening in this country. And I can't help but think about what's happening in Iran right now and in the Middle East generally, and think about those people, like those people sitting on the Capitol steps behind me. What are they experiencing today? Do they still have homes? Are they safe? No. Do they know what's coming next? No. And we are living just a mini version of that with what Trump does every day. And yet we all know even bombing people, even killing people cannot distract us from what's going on with the Epstein files, period. We have to keep our eyes on that because there are women, there are men, there are people who were victimized, who were trafficked, who were sexually assaulted repeatedly. And that was done by people in power. And around the world, we know men are being held to account, people are being held to account. So it's time. It's time that we all say, okay, the war's over here, but here's this story here. Here it is. And finally, folks, those of you who are helping me with the Tim Carpenter Institute project, right now we are in the process of setting up an email that will work properly to get it right to me. If you want to send things right now, I've interviewed several people already. I would like you to send things right to my personal email. Don't send it to PDA. Send it to Donna Sicko, so Donna Sicko, Sicko, at gmail.com. And that Sicko, some people think it applies to my brain, applies to the movie that my husband and I were in. So Donna Sicko at gmail.com. And I'm writing about our early history with PDA, and a big thanks to Russell Friedman and Martha Friedman and Russell Green and lots of people who have talked to me about the project so far. So thanks, Ellen, and back to you. And don't forget to give to PDA today. Give something, please, because PDA needs it. The work is broader. You know that. The work is broader than ever before right now. And it means more, but it also costs more. So please try and give a little bit to PDA. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Donna. And before I introduce Mike Fox, and Mike will tell us about our PDA to-dos for this week and echo some of what Donna just said, I do want to let everybody know that I did go to Washington, D.C. This past week for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. They shut down the federal government because it rained a little bit. They shut things down easy in Washington, D.C. on Monday, so that lost a day. But I had a couple meetings on a nuclear nonproliferation project I'm working on. I was able to meet with, boy, a ton of the Congress people out at an event opposing the war, with Jim McGovern speaking, Pramila Jayapal. I'm going to forget people here. Greg Kassar, Sarah Jacobs, took a great picture with Delia Ramirez, talked to her for a bit. Just an incredible group of progressives organized by the Congressional Progressive Caucus and Women Without War. And then I met with Rose's team, Bernie's team, Pramila's team, all about, PDA's uh, sort of projects and program that we're pushing up on Capitol Hill. And they are all very excited to work with us. So exactly what Donna just said. We have a lot going on with PDA, and give what you can, support us however you can, let everybody know about PDA. And Mike Fox with our PDA to-dos for this week. Take it away.
Cool. Can you hear me all right?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. My to-do number one is get this wrapped in about 45 seconds so that we're on time for Melissa. So hang on with me, gang. I'll make it brief. Number one, revel in the fact that you're surrounded by people who get it. Feel the space, know that there's love in this room, and take it with you when you leave this call, okay? It's all about solidarity here. All right, so time and treasure from a time standpoint. We got to be nailing the phones. Phone bank, phone bank, phone bank. Phone bankers, toss in the chat that you're a phone banker and toss the link in pdamerica.org/volunteer. We're looking for an hour. I need 20 new people from this call. Let's make it happen. Number two, Don already referenced it. Treasure. Everybody, if we can just get solidarity a buck across the board. This call's about solidarity. Do more if you can. And let's get it back to you, Alan. I'll take a deeper dive at the top of the hour.
Thank you so much, Mike. And I do want to reiterate it again. Um, the costs for running PDA are not um, they're not small, and we are doing a lot across the country, including supporting all sorts of campaigns. So please give what you can this week. And I am very happy to introduce the person who is going to introduce Melissa Bird, who is running for Congress in the state of Oregon. And that is our Oregon State Coordinator, Dave Alba. Dave Alba, take it away.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, Alan. Good to be here today. Hey, everybody. Um, so I'm honored to introduce Dr. Melissa Bird, who's running for Congress in the 4th Congressional District in Oregon. To me, she is not just the champion that I want to represent me here, but she's a good friend. And she brings, not only does she bring that power to champion progressive policies, but interestingly too, to not sound corny, she brings love to politics, which I know we've talked about here in this room before. And so with that, let me just introduce Dr. Melissa Bird.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's really nice to see you. Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Melissa Bird. I am running for Congress in Oregon's 4th Congressional District Democratic primary. I have so very deeply loved being involved with PDA, and I am just so grateful for that outpouring of love and support, not just with volunteers, but also with donations and just the general cheering on of what I am doing here in Oregon. I live in Corvallis, Oregon with my family. My husband is a disabled veteran who served 2 tours of duty, one in Kosovo and one in Iraq. We have 3 children. They are 24, 18, and 15 years old. And we moved to Corvallis almost 10 years ago because my husband got into Oregon State University on the GI Bill. What makes me a doctor is that I have a master's degree and a PhD in social work, and I have been practicing macro level social work, which just generally means that I am a policy advocate and community organizer. So I have spent my entire career doing policy advocacy for LGBTQ plus homeless folks, and really cut my teeth politically working as the chief lobbyist for Planned Parenthood of Utah, which is where I'm originally from. So I I always get this question, why did you decide to run for Congress? And I decided to run in particular in this race in particular for several reasons. The very first and most important one is that I did not feel like our current representative was responding to the needs of us in the community. And through my own personal experience of not being responded to or listened to, but also from the experience of people that I knew throughout the district, I felt like we needed someone in this position with the rise of fascism and authoritarianism. We need someone in this district who understands what it's like to be raising children in this economy, who understands what it's like to try working in this economy, who knows what it's like to have to make decisions about how we're paying our rent, how we're paying our bills. And so I'd been thinking about it and thinking, boy, it would really be great if we had someone who understood the system working in Congress to help advocate for our social safety net and all the programs that started being cut, which I'm intimately involved with as an advocate, as a social worker. And then my husband's job was rescinded by order of the president in January of 2025. He had worked for 8 years to get hired under veterans preference to work for NOAA as a marine biologist, and his job was rescinded. And again, I went to our congressional delegation and got no response. And so I kind of went all in at that point. I talked to several people that I knew in the community, and I said, "What do you think about this?" And they said, "Do it, do it, do it. Please do it." And the most incredible thing about running this race right now in this moment is that the response from people has been overwhelmingly positive. So they are not just saying to me, "Oh my God, thank God you're running," but they're also asking questions about who I am as a human being. And Dave, I really think it's amazing that you brought up that I I am running a campaign. I mean, it does sound really cheesy, actually, like based in the love of my community, the love of connection, and the love of thinking about how we can actually embrace and elect leaders who believe strongly into how we are connecting in our communities. I'm a descendant of the Shivwits Band of Southern Paiutes from Utah. Um, and I think a lot of my native roots really come into play in this campaign. And what has been just truly beautiful and astonishing to me has been how we have focused on every corner of this district. So this district goes from the border of California all the way up the Oregon coast to the top of Lincoln County, and then all of Benton County, all of Lane County, and half of Douglas County. So it's the second largest district in the state. And we have traveled this district. Yesterday, we were down in Brookings and going all the way up the coast, delivering lawn signs to people and talking to voters and connecting with voters. And what I am hearing over and over and over again is the joy and surprise that people receive when I show up in a room. And I think that's really reflective of the leadership that we have had, not just in the incumbent, but also the person who previously held this seat for 25 years. One of the things that we know is that this seat has been represented by someone in Eugene, which is the largest city in the district, Springfield or Medford, for the entirety of this district's. This district came into being in 1948, and it has been represented by someone from those areas entirely this whole time. And what we are feeling on the western part of the district is a deep disconnect with how our elected officials respond to our needs, particularly in the rural areas. And I was thrilled when Dave Alba introduced me to Ruby, the Rural Urban Bridge Initiative, and also the Rural New Deal, because it has provided me with a phenomenal platform to be able to talk about rural viability and economic viability. I grew up in a small town in Utah, so I completely understand and am really connected to the energy throughout this district, not just in our two core cities of Corvallis and Eugene, and that has been a core tenet of our campaign. The other thing that I have really loved about running for Congress is that um, is being able to protest with people. I'm a protester. I'm a born protester. I was staging one woman protests in high school in Park City, Utah. But one of the things that I have just really loved is going all over this district and protesting ICE. There was a threat of an ICE facility being built in Newport, and I was there on the front lines with the Indivisible folks fighting against that, and just learning so much from the community. And I think that is the thing that I have deeply enjoyed about this process is getting to know what people need and not assuming what people need. And we have kept a running list since we started doing meet and greets and canvassing voters. And we're asking people, what are the main issues in your life? What do you need? What is happening in your world? And we have kept a running list of those things so that when we win, not just the primary, but the general, we will be prepared to introduce legislation that benefits the community that the community is asking for, not just what we are assuming the community needs. And I think that is a fundamental way of leading that we need to push up against and fight this fascist authoritarianism that is rising in this country. I'm taking no corporate money. I am not taking APAC money. My opponent has raised about 246,000 from the pro-Israel lobby. I've been endorsed by Track APAC. So um, PDA was my first amazing endorsement. And since then, I have been endorsed by Working Families Party here in Oregon, Progressive Victory. Several indivisible chapters throughout the district have endorsed me, and some local elected officials. And I have worked in politics for a long time. I've worked in politics for about 30-ish years, but always on the advocacy side, always on the community organizing side, always on the side where I was advocating at a state and federal level for people to get healthcare and to get, access to food and housing and all of those things that are critically important to the infrastructure of our communities. And I feel like this is the moment where we deserve to have leaders in Congress who are willing to stand not just in that floor, but in that body and say enough is enough. Our communities deserve leaders who are willing to stand up and fight for them, and who, because of my life and because of who I am as a human being, I am a born advocate in that respect. When I see something, I speak out about that thing. And I think because of my really unique positional understanding about how government works and how policymaking works and how things operate within Congress, having someone like me to be able to work with some of the folks you were mentioning you met with earlier, Alan, like having someone like me who can come in and also work on the things that we think are most important as progressives is critical to moving forward. Um, uh, Moving forward, I don't want to call it an agenda because that doesn't sound right, but I guess it could be. Moving forward policies and shifts within our communities that allow us to completely change the way we are structured as a democracy. And that's what I love the most about this. I tens of thousands of people later, and I'm just having a great time. Alan, I can see that you're on, but I
Yes.
can't hear
Oh,
you.
well, I was going to throw back to Dave for the first response and question, just as Dave lives in the district. But yeah, wow, you will be, I trust you will be a fantastic representative for your constituents. And I really encourage people to check out Melissa's campaign website. It's a marvelous campaign website. It has some nice uh, pictures of the family and everything, but it really has very detailed positions that are put forward, all of them in line with PDA's positions. And it really is a much, much better vision of the federal government that you're putting forward than exists at the present. And it will be a blessing to have you in Congress. But Dave, I throw back to you.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Alan. Melissa, let's see. Okay, I live in Oregon's Coast Range, and here, the level of carbon sequestration because of our forests is, I'm not a scientist, so, I might mess this up, but, per square foot or whatever, there's more carbon sequestration potential here than even the Amazon forest.
Yeah.
So, of course, logging practices and the timber issue in general in Oregon is a huge issue. How how would you address the need to protect our forests, and how does that compare to the incumbents' track record?
Thank you so much for this question, Dave. It's a really critical question. Part of the reason we decided to move to Oregon was because of the forests. I grew up in the forest in the mountains, and I think it's the beauty of Oregon is our forests. Um, we are currently facing the Trump administration has issued an order to began clear cutting and old growth logging in on the BLM land here in Oregon. My opponent, our incumbent, voted in favor of the Fix Our Forest Act, which opens up our forests to old growth logging and clear cutting. And I will say that Oregon learned this lesson well in the 90s. And one of the things that I have learned from talking to folks throughout the district is that the smaller lumber companies and the folks that have been Oregon-based smaller logging companies do not want to see this happen because they have a very clear understanding, particularly that if you cut old growth, it doesn't ever come back. And so we have learned through this system that decimating the forest doesn't help any of us. It decimates our watersheds, it damages our salmon and our fisheries, and it creates a permanent disruption of our ecosystem. And um, we have been encouraging the people in the district by communicating with them about how to comment about what's happening with the BLM land. I think there is a way to engage in sustainable forestry where particularly our small businesses and our smaller timber operators can still continue to operate while engaging in a reciprocal and sustainable relationship with the planet. And that's how we need to approach this is because if we cut down the trees, those logging businesses go out of business in 20 years anyway. And also, I always approach the environment and this planet from a very reciprocal, seven generations lens. It's the native person in me. That we have to be working also with tribal leaders and making sure we're working with conservation industry and the tribes to make sure that we are creating a sustainable forest that will be here, for tens of thousands of years to come. And I'm gravely concerned that I have not heard a lot of pushback from our incumbent about what's happening on the BLM land.
As Dave will remember, I was really sort of upset about the Val Hoyle's election over Doyle Canning in your district because, if you do look at public opinion polling, Oregon, I think, ranks as the top state in the country as to where the climate emergency ranks as a political consideration among the population, though the polling data is now a little dated. And so, environmental issues are very foregrounded. And there was a signature issue in the district about, I believe, an oil pipeline a few years back. And Val Hoyle had supported it. And of course, Doyle had vehemently opposed it. And of course, PDA vehemently opposed it. And and the the incumbent who was DeFazio had been there forever, right? But obviously had a lot of influence, just instantly endorsed Val Hoyle. And I got to say, it's upset that one of our favorite senators in the country, Jeff Merkley, who we rarely disagree with, also endorsed Val Hoyle. Apparently, he was the head of the Senate when she was the head of the Assembly or something like that. So they had a relationship. Was the excuse. But I mean, come on. This is Oregon. Oregon can lead and must lead. And we need a candidate like yourself to represent a district that can lift up environmental issues and place them, in front of the members of Congress who, many of them are supportive, especially the progressives, but they don't foreground the issue like it would be if you had a real champion coming from a district where the public was really behind it as well. So that was a lesson in the power of party politics. And it's dismaying to hear that Val Hoyle has apparently been no better on environmental issues as in the House of Representatives, as she was beforehand. So, yeah, well, let's see if I saw people did raise their hands, and actually, let's have a stack. And Donna, do you have a question maybe you'd want to ask or a thought to share with
I
Melissa?
just wanted to say right on, Melissa, you are really a strong candidate. And we have a similar situation. I don't know if you've spoken with our candidate in CD1 in Colorado. We have a couple of candidates challenging our incumbent who's been in office for more than 20 years. Diana DeGette is our rep here. And in our recent county assembly, the young woman who's running, Milat Kiros, really took the race. So she will be on the ballot, and it's pretty interesting to see the challenges that are coming from progressives. The only thing I really know about Corvallis is the Mad as Hell Doctors tour used to originate from there. And I just wondered, what Medicare for All energy is in Oregon right now?
Well, we have a great Medicare for all is still really high on the list of issues for people, and I believe that the state of Oregon, and Bree, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but the state of Oregon is actually looking at its own Medicare for all um, program, and also looking at divesting from the tax infrastructure. So with the federal government, so there's a lot going on here in Oregon. Um, yeah, Bree just posted it in the chat. The rules should be coming out this year. So that's a huge, I mean, for me, that's a no-brainer. My family is currently on Medicaid. When my husband's job was rescinded, we lost our hopes of getting insurance. He's on contract right now as a marine biologist. And so we haven't had insurance for a really long time, and I'm self-employed, so it's even more complicated. And, 15-year-old boys who play basketball get hurt. So all of us deserve and should have uh, health insurance. Like there's just a no-brainer. We should all have access to medical care. So it's a really exciting time. And I'd love to be connected with that person in Colorado, Donna, if you want to
Okay.
connect us. I'd love
Yeah,
it.
I think she'd like to be connected with you.
That'd be awesome. Thank
Okay.
you.
And before I call on Neil, yes, Oregon is in fact the state in the country right now that is the front runner in trying to develop a statewide universal single payer system, and we are rooting for that and supporting it fully. And if you haven't seen, people out there, public opinion polls over the last 3 months are rating universal single payer healthcare and Medicare for all higher than they've ever been, or at least in my political lifetime. Might
Yeah.
have been around Harry Truman's time. I think it had majority support too. Neil Penn, your question or comment?
Yes, good afternoon, Melissa. You probably don't remember me. We met a few months back at an ICE protest in Eugene. I love what you said about the Rural New Deal, and I'd like to hear your strategy. Having gone to a Labor Day event in Lane County, it seemed that Val, because she previously was a strong advocate for unionized labor, that they're myopic to the other things that you had concerned, that you had rightfully identified, such as enabling Israel or environmentals. How are you going to challenge the fact that organized labor is myopic in Oregon in regard to oil?
Um, Hi, Neil. I do recognize your voice, so I think I do remember meeting you. I love that protest in Eugene. Um, so I mean, I am pro labor. I'm very supportive of labor and labor movements, and so in that, the incumbent and I are not so different. I think our strategy all along has been in connecting with the people, and I actually do have strong individual support from folks who are part of the labor movement. I knew because of the representative's previous job as the head of the BOLI, the Commission on Labor here in Oregon, that it would be a fool's errand to try and push for that kind of support. But that doesn't mean that I don't have supportive people who are involved in the unions. And I think that we have an incredibly strong relationship with folks, working class folks, and working moms in particular, that is really starting to show itself pre-primary. And those are the people that I'm relying on for the most support, and we'll see what happens. The unions have not all come out stating whether or not they have endorsed my opponent. And I did go after everybody's, I was at least hoping for an interview with several of our labor unions and did not get any. And I actually talk about that on a podcast that the Oregon Voices podcast about that process and what that's been like.
Um, Terry Stiegel, I'm going to call on you in a second, and you're right on cue because Terry is a great progressive union organizer in northwestern Indiana.
Great.
But I have to say, here in California, of the top tier candidates for governor, I do view Eric Swalwell as more conservative, more moderate, more centrist than Katie Porter or Tom Steyer. And yet he received over the past 10 days major statewide union endorsements. And we all support labor unions at PDA and on the progressive left, but we do have to be realistic about challenging their political decisions in a more forthright way.
I
Because,
think that's absolutely true, Alan, and I hope we can start doing that nationally.
and I'll at a later call, I'll name the names of the unions, but it's very dismaying.
Yeah.
Terry, how you doing? And if you want to, of course, share your, I know you know the dynamics that Melissa and I are talking about, but go ahead, Terry.
Well, I think there's something I'd like to just offer basically a policy issue she could add to her platform to maybe save the forest. Okay, and I've been promoting this for a long time, is steel frame housing.
Mm.
Okay, and California is going to experience to have to rebuild a lot of housings, and I'm probably all along that west coast with these wildfires. So steel frame housing is a solution. The cost is relatively the same material wise. And the thing of it is, it takes 40 to 50 trees to frame a wood frame house. It takes 6 junk cars to frame a 2,000 square foot house. And I think this is the directions we got to go because we do have to save these forests. And I'm a big advocate of that. And we have to, make sure that we have these migratory corridors for nature and everything else. So I would just say that would be a good one to introduce to the people of Oregon, steel frame housing.
Thank you so much, Terry. I really appreciate that.
And Lynn, please unmute.
Yes, I noticed that the incumbent in this race has voted yes on the Lake and Riley Act, which is a very dangerous bill that passed, and it's going to hurt. It's hurting immigrants and even citizens that are getting picked up just for being suspected of a crime. So, what do you plan to do to protect the immigrant population from, you know, ICE and unnecessary or illegal arrests, that kind of thing? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Yeah. Oh, the Lake and Riley Act. So, I am fully in support of abolishing ICE. I look at this as a 500-year-old problem with a different uniform on. So, my people were also victims of genocide and colonization, and my ancestors, were taken without their consent. And what we are doing here when it comes to ICE and the Department of Homeland Security is an abomination. And I think not only do we need to make sure that our immigrant neighbors and friends and relatives have access to all of the legal protections that exist in this country, we need to focus on abolishing ICE and putting resources and creating opportunities for people to become immigrants. I mean, to become citizens and become a part of this country without it being this long, prolonged, drawn out system. This is one of the things that I think is really critical in a lot of things that we do in the federal government. We are relying on old systems to move us forward in the future, and they cost us more federal tax dollars in the long run, and they're a waste of time and energy. When my husband was serving in the National Guard in Orange County, California, a big chunk of his unit was not here, did not have citizenship. So they're fighting for our country without citizenship. And that is something that we have got to, and it's because it just takes so long. And so we need to be coming up with solutions to allow immigrant folks to become citizens of this nation while we are also protecting amnesty. And then we need to be coming up, we need to abolish ICE and be thinking about how we are helping our immigrants not just survive in this country, but thrive in this country. And it is a critical piece to the rural economy in this district for us to protect immigrants and for us to help them be able to raise their families and work in this district because of our tourist industries, because of our agricultural industries, because of our fisheries. There's a huge amount of folks who are immigrant folks who work in our fisheries. And so we need to be protecting them and also helping them get a clear path to citizenship moving forward.
Thank you so much. And we're going to take the three people on the stack, and then maybe Dave can have a final thought. But then I'm going to ask you a final question after that. Then we're going to have Christian Nunez make an announcement about Christian is the recent president of the National Organization of Women, who's joining us to make an announcement about her new organization she's founding in their inaugural event that is taking place on Wednesday. And then Nick Bryant will be joining us, and he will be our featured guest. And the final question I have for you won't be about your campaign, but about your thoughts on the Epstein crisis, to call it that, because
Great.
the next two segments will deal with that and everything that you as we've learned about you as a person. I think it would be very interesting to hear your thoughts on that as we segue to that subject, very dark subject, of course. David Zupan, please unmute.
Hi,
David?
Melissa. Thanks. I'm so glad you're running. I'm from what I understand, your opponent has not been particularly accessible regarding the issue of arming Israel. Kind of a reluctant participant in meetings with local citizens, very concerned about stopping the arming of Israel to continue the genocide. Wondered if you could comment on your position in that regard.
Yeah, thank you so much, David. What's happening in Gaza is a genocide. We have to stop arming Israel. What is happening around the Middle East is horrifying. And it just, my husband trained with the IDF, and he served with those people, the Israeli forces in Iraq, um, he is horrified by what's happening, and he really, that's amazing. Um, he really, you know, I, I'm still blown away that the incumbent cannot outwardly say that what is happening in Gaza is a genocide. I'm I'm still just completely horrified that we can look at what is happening, on Sunday, March 22nd, 2026, with everything that has folded upon itself, and not have someone come out very strongly condemning the violence that Israel is perpetuating on countries throughout the Middle East with our help and our assistance. And that is the thing that I am still completely gobsmacked by. And what I hope, David, and for all of you, what I hope is that, I'm having a conversation with my 18-year-old who just bought her first car, who's like, Mom, how am I supposed to afford gas? And I'm like, yeah, welcome to adulthood, kiddo. And but also tying that in for her with the war that we are perpetuating in Iran is really important. And so I'm hoping that we continue to be able to push back against just this arming of Israel has got to stop. And us perpetuating this violence in the Middle East as a nation also has to stop.
Mike Hirsch, please unmute.
Thanks, Sam.
Go ahead. Mike, I think you might have a bad connection. We can't hear you. Um, hmm.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hey, Melissa, how you doing?
Hey, Mike.
Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm just so in awe of your compassion, your courage, your wisdom. How can we help you best? Because it's so essential that you win this primary and that you go on to an easy win in November, because it's an overwhelmingly Democratic district. What can we do to help you win?
Well, the biggest thing, the very first thing, of course, is donating money. We ideally, to push us through to the finish line on May 19th, ideally, we need to raise another $100,000. And as we all know, that comes in chunks because this is a grassroots campaign and because all of our donors are regular people like you. But I'm looking at 352 of you. So if every one of you donated $20, my God, that would make such a huge difference in our fundraising efforts. We are very judicious with our money. All of our money goes to field. It goes to the literature that we are handing to people at the doors. And so we're very judicious. All this money goes straight to field and helping me travel throughout the district to be one-on-one with voters. The second thing is to volunteer to canvass and to phone bank. And whether you're phone banking through PDA, which of course is critical to our success, our canvassing is happening in all throughout the district. We have incredible teams of canvassers. So between phone banking and canvassing, when we are connecting with voters on the doors, that we are getting the votes. I mean, hands down, I can count on two hands of the thousands and thousands of people I've talked to who have said, "No way am I voting for you. I'm voting for the incumbent." So we have some incredible momentum here in the district. So donating, phone banking, and canvassing is critical. But then the other thing is to make sure that you are following us on social media, to bump us up in the algorithms, and to play the algorithm Olympics would be great. And also please share with anybody you know in Oregon the race and say my name to people, because as we well know, people vote by name. And so the more people hear my name, the more likely it is that they're going to vote for me. And so I tell people every time I leave an event, I see just gossip about me. Just the bird is the word. Get out there and talk about Melissa Bird. So those are the ways to help the most.
I'm sorry, my connection dropped and I had to sign back on. So it happens
Good
to.
to see you again, Ellen.
Hi there. Carla is the final person on stack, and then we'll go to Dave Alba, and then I'll have a final question, and then we'll go to Christian and to Nick. Please unmute, Carla.
Yes, this is Carla in Minnesota, and I'm going to let you know that PDA does have an active disability team, and we are well supported by Representative Dingle, who's on the Congressional Disability Caucus. And she has a family situation, much like I think I'm hearing you're talking about. And especially, I want to bring attention about the disability community in rural America, which is major healthcare issue. So I'm wondering if you're making any contacts with your local disability community, because 25% of the American population has a disability. So it's a large voting bloc. So
Thank
that's
you
my
so much,
question.
Carla. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, I am a deep advocate for people with disabilities. We have connected with several of our disability communities, and advocating for, fighting for, yelling as loud as I possibly can for folks with disabilities is a very important part of who I am as a human being, and it is a part and a critical piece of our advocacy. And when I am talking to folks throughout the district, particularly in the rural areas, it is the thing that I'm talking about most. So thank you so much for bringing it up, Carla. I really appreciate it.
Over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, thanks, Melissa, for taking time today. I know you have a busy schedule. I think you were down on the coast yesterday. I think you're gonna be down in Eugene today, maybe. You're just getting all around the district, so I appreciate you taking the time to be here because your perspective is important for progressives all around the country. Um, uh, please donate. Just being involved with Melissa's campaign and seeing how crazy it is for real people to get elected. It's beyond words. So, final thought is, as Melissa has referenced, she's a real human being, and she's coming with her real human values and bringing that to the table. And that's something that we need in our representatives. Thanks, Melissa.
You bet. Thank you.
Well, the primary date is May 19th. And Dave and Melissa, I'm assuming none of Trump's bluster and the SAVE Act are impacting Oregon vote by mail, right? You've had the most extensive vote by mail system in the whole country. It's worked brilliantly. And of course, Trump is trying to outlaw that.
I'm really glad you brought that up because it is a great reminder. Ballots actually hit the last week of April. We are encouraging voters to vote early, and we are encouraging them to get them directly to the county drop boxes because of the threats that the administration has made about the post office. So, no, the SAVE Act, we were actually just talking about this as a campaign yesterday, wouldn't necessarily direct how we do motor voter, but our biggest concern is the interference of the ballot at the post office. If we just mail it through the mail like we normally do. So we are encouraging people to vote early and get their ballots in early at the drop box. And we have said, back to Carla's point, we have encouraged people who know people with disabilities have a difficult time getting to the post office, to the drop box to help their neighbors and friends. So
Thank you so much. And so everyone, please check out Melissa's campaign. And if a staff member can again put in fresh the link to make a split donation to Melissa's campaign and to PDA, we will, of course, have costs we will incur as we support the campaign. And we are just very excited to have you on, and we will throw our full support behind your candidacy in the coming weeks and in the general election and re-election. So, but the next two speakers are going to touch on, obviously what is one of the dominant stories of the past few years, and what is certainly one of the darkest episodes in recent American history, and there have been many to compete with it, which is the whole Jeffrey Epstein um, international ring of mega influence, uh, sex trafficking, um, just the corruption of our elites and everything. And I'm just wondering, all of us having heard you talk about your political philosophy, and it's very compelling, how you think through this. And of course, actually, Nick Bryan will be on in a few minutes, has a very close relationship with a group of women who are really heroes, I think, for standing up and demanding justice. But your thoughts?
so I am a survivor of childhood sexual and physical abuse at the hands of someone who had a lot of power in the church, who was also my grandfather. But
Mm.
I take this very seriously, not just as a survivor, but also as someone who started my um, social work career when I got my bachelor's degree in human development. I started working with abused and neglected children, and I taught in several different capacities from preschool all the way up through through sixth graders, working with them as a social worker and helping them move through the ramifications of their childhood abuse. And I will do everything, and I will work with all of the elected officials in Congress to get this exposed for what it is, because I actually look at it as a symptom of what I experienced as a child and a young person. That this is so insidious, and I will close by saying this. As a survivor who thought that my work in social work meant that I was going to be able to impact the stopping of childhood sexual and physical abuse, and the fact that I mean, I'm a drop in the bucket, but to be able to be elected to Congress to actually feasibly do something about this, whether it's through exposure or prosecution or wherever this is going, I will fight like hell to make sure that other women like me don't ever have this experience, because you live with it forever.
Love and solidarity, and very much looking forward to working with you over the next few weeks. And thank you for stepping up and running for office and being a public servant. So thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Melissa Bird. And by the way, it slipped my mind earlier. One of the Congress people that I met with in person was Ted Lieu. And, you know, there are issues that PDA disagrees with Ted Lieu about. um, one big one in particular. But he's been a very responsible member of Congress other than that issue. And he, of course, uh, very much the kind of congressperson who adheres to protocol, but he shouted out during Pam Bondi's, famously during Pam Bondi's appearance, and demanded, enforced at that moment public awareness of the level of accusations actually against the president in the files. And that was something that I had to thank him for very quickly because I was very proud of him when he did that. And um, there have been many powerful moments here, and that was only one of them. But I met with him personally and thanked him for that. And we certainly need more Congress people being that forthright, but we're getting there.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Ellen.
Yeah.
And everyone here at PDA, y'all are awesome. You rock.
Thank you so much. And Christian Nunez, let's bring Christian forward and please unmute Christian. And Christian is here, of course, a great friend of PDA's, is here to tell us about her event, which is taking place this Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Take it away, Christian.
Hi, everyone. So it is great to see everyone again. Always a pleasure to be here with BDA and the wonderful work that you all are doing. So I am extremely excited to talk about my new endeavor. As many of you know, I left as president of NOW in mid-August to just kind of go back and hyper focus on some things that I thought were important to me, and also just balancing motherhood. But in that journey, one of the things that is really important to me, really personal to me, is gender-based violence. And I have my career started as a therapist, also like Melissa, social worker. I've been licensed clinical social worker for over 23 years. And I should say now 21 years as licensed, but I've been practicing for about 23, 24 years. And I worked a lot with trauma patients, trauma clients. I specialize in PTSD and trauma recovery. And, so many of the issues that I work with from child up to adult, sexual abuse, gender-based violence was always something that came up. And working directly, I saw a lot of the gaps in the system. I saw a lot of the ways that survivors, even I worked as a victim advocate before I was a therapist, just were not getting the justice they were due. And then those from underserved and marginalized communities were definitely not given the justice or even believed like they should be and recognized. So I decided that I wanted to do more. I started Saving Ourselves Foundation, which is basically started. I started that in October 2025. And we are existing to build a future where we believe women and children can live free and safely from violence and fear. A big part of what we do, yes, there's many gender-based violence organizations, but what we're trying to do is definitely make the difference of lived experience, survivor-led, and community-led work. We're mobilizing to make sure that we're involved in the community and solving the problem of gender-based violence. We're no longer putting all the responsibility and the burden on women and children, to make sure that systems change, to make sure that people are held accountable. Our SOS is what we call ourselves, for Saving Ourselves, is really there to make sure that we remove that responsibility from them and look at how structures and systems and cultures are actually allowing gender-based violence to continue to thrive. And it has been thriving for decades. Just to note, I was looking at an article and I heard about this festival in a town in a different country in Africa. And the whole festival is designed around a day they give permissibility, they give men the permission to actually sexually assault women and girls. Now, I've been trying to research this to make sure it's accurate, but I kind of looked more into it, and there is some accuracy into these types of holidays or festivals that are given around the country. But if we think about that some countries actually give permission, they have days dedicated where they premeditately plan to assault women and children and girls. This is why this is such an important issue. And then we think about Epstein. We think about, the Tate brothers. We think about P. Diddy. We think about R. Kelly. We think about Bill Cosby. We think about the generations and the generations and the decades of abusers and serial abusers. We're not talking about a person who did it one time. We're talking about serial abusers, of people who have intentionally planned, premeditated, plotted, arranged to take violence in sexual violence and physical violence against women and children and some young boys, including the children part about this. So this is becoming what the World Health Organization is calling now a public health pandemic, gender-based violence. And it is something that can be stopped. It is something that can be prevented. So what we're hoping to do is essentially fill those gaps of how we look at gender-based violence, how we approach gender-based violence, and also how we look at the intersections of gender-based violence. We're having our kickoff on Wednesday, this Wednesday, the 25th, at 6:30. It's a virtual kickoff. I'll drop the chat and the flyer and the RCP in the chat and the flyer. But what we're basically going to do is have some panel discussions from experts and a panel who will really be focusing on looking at this from a survivor-centered approach, and how we look at and hold gender-based violence accountable, how we don't hold accountable and how we have to move to more responsibility and accountability. We'll have Alvaro Pinzon, he's director of Rising Ground, Respect and Responsibility in New York. We have Linda A. Seabrook. Linda A. Seabrook is formerly with the Biden and Harris administration with the Racial Justice, Equity, in the Department of Justice, Attorney General, Department of Justice with Office of Women Victims and Witnesses. But she also now has her own consulting project and firm where she's working on looking at it for community-led centered. And then we'll have a panel. The panel is called Bigger Than Epstein, Deconstructing Epstein and Looking for Community Solutions. And on there, I'll be moderated by journalist Lottie Journer. And we have experts, Kenya Tish Barnes, who is the co-founder of the Mute R. Kelly movement, Omni Miranda Martone. They are the founder and president of the Sexual Violence Prevention Association. And then we'll have Dr. Gary Ford Jr., who is an Africana and feminist studies professor at Lehman College in New York, and also author of the biography of Constance Motley Baker, and her documentary. And so it's going to be very deep. We're going to really look at this really honestly. We're going to do a deep dive. We're going to deconstruct. We're going to talk about the exploitation, power imbalances that we see and the systemic failures. So I'm inviting everyone out. So I will drop that in the chat because I know you all have a great program ahead. And I look forward to anybody who's interested. One of the things I would say is that we're doing a huge community involvement part. So if you want to learn more and be involved, please feel free to send me an email.
And of course,
I was going to turn back over to you, Alan.
Well, just to say, of course, we'll be continuing to partner with you
Yes,
in this work and, on all of your projects. And I have put the link, the Eventbrite, I believe, link into the chat.
Perfect.
And I know we are behind schedule, and I want everybody to now set an hour aside because the person who is going to be on deck, Nick Bryant, I believe, is one of the heroes of our time, along with Julie K. Brown, the reporter in Miami, and of course, the Epstein survivors themselves. I think that Nick Bryant's work as a researcher, advocate, and somebody who's been available for detailed interviews on the Epstein scandal for a few years now has just been one of the clearest voices providing honest information to people in the country. But we are behind schedule, and so I do have to go to Mike Fox, the Deputy Executive Director of PDA, with our PDA to-dos right at this moment. And of course, encouraging everybody to donate to Melissa Bird's campaign and sign up for Christian's event on Wednesday. And Mike Fox, what else is to be highlighted in our PDA to-do updates? And maybe leave the list of thank yous till later because we should get to Nick Bryant as soon as possible.
Then get on the phone and give money. That's the short pitch.
Okay, but sign up to be a phone volunteer with PDA to make calls for campaigns and other events, including, of course, probably No Kings coming up this weekend.
Yep.
But also give money, and the links are in the chat. Is that
Yep.
correct? They
Oh,
are from
yeah.
Susan Gilbert from Colorado. That is fantastic. And we'll be thanking everybody who's been able to sign up to be a make phone calls on behalf of PDA endorsed candidates and who has donated wants their name announced as someone donating money this hour. So Mike will be back in a bit. Is that all, Mike?
One thing, everybody, when we wrap the recording, stick around for family time and we'll do a deep dive into where we're at on our goal. Let's get to our guest.
And we're going to take a little pause here for about 1, 2, 3 seconds, simply because I am so excited, though excitement really isn't the right word, given the nature of the content we'll be discussing. I'm very, very happy that we have Nick Bryant joining us, and we certainly want to be able to bracket um, his joining us now and our dialogue and his presentation to be able to easily make it a separate file and to also post it on our social media in the coming days. So Nick Bryant and I actually encourage people to check out his website, which, if I remember correctly, and I have so many websites open, I'm trying to open it. Um, but Nick Bryant was sort of dragged kicking and screaming into creating his website. And it is a very, very excellent website for an author. And it has a lot of information about Nick Bryant. And he has been a researcher and an author of numerous books. Perhaps most notable is a book called The Franklin Scandal because it documents thoroughly a case that almost even in its scope very much resembles the sex trafficking ring of that Jeffrey Epstein organized, though this was based in, oh boy. Hello, can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. This was based in Iowa and Nebraska. And um, Nick Bryant is also a researcher on childhood poverty in the United States and has done extensive work on the impact, not only, of course, of the horrors of sex trafficking and its impact on young people in America and across the world.
Thank you very much for allowing me to
Well,
talk.
I had promised Christian to have an opportunity to ask the first question, but I want to let you know in advance of that I have many questions too.
Go
And
for
I
it.
have, well, we're at this in the 2 hours of town hall, so we only have a few minutes left. But my questions are legion, and I've watched so many interviews with you, and I sure have a few that I'll get to today. But Christian Nunez, um, are you still with us? You are, I think. There you are. Hey, just a quick question. We obviously don't have too much time, and I'll try to be quick too. But you're up first, Christian. I mean, your presentation
Thank,
earlier made
thank you.
clear you're clearly a resident expert on the subject that is
No,
is
I
the basis behind.
appreciate your presentation, Nicholas. It's very helpful. Um, I'm curious for you, like, of all the research you've done and seen amongst the Epstein and Epstein files, like, what are like the two major commonalities that you have seen across the abusers that have participated with Epstein?
All abusers, well, I mean, to molest children is obviously a power thing. And I think that that's the case with any sexual assault. But to molest children is further. And there are very noted people. I mean, Leon Black is one. But there was a prime minister of a Middle Eastern country that really liked to beat up these little girls. I mean, that was his thing, was beating up these little girls. So the sadism on it's on a continuum, but there's that's one of the things. And then the other thing is they think they're above the law. Those are the two commonalities.
Christian, can you hold for 1 second? Because I want to maybe I sort of want to ask this question in front of Christian. I mean, um, I would I would be never prouder to be able to walk those very unforgiving halls of Congress with their marble floors with Christian Nunez, perhaps you as well, Nick Bryant, asking people to support what you're calling for. And
Absolutely.
I would be appalled at any office that would say no. And we do have a strong relations with considerable influence in many offices. And I'm wondering, obviously your experience up on the Hill with now, do you think that, what's your experience with that, Chris? Do you think that if you went to, allied offices and then even expanding past allied offices, I understand there's resistance, but if we call out these offices for resisting, I mean, I expect them I would hope and pray that they would buckle. Christian, what's your thoughts on that quick? And then
Yeah.
for Nick.
So one of the things I will say from my time at now, because I was involved in a lot of the reviewing and endorsement and making suggestions, recommendations on some of the bills like deepfakes and things like that have come through, like regarding any type of form. But what I will say, it's a very bipartisan issue, right? So what you actually see is that majority of people actually come in alignment when we're talking about gender-based violence. A majority of the elected officials will actually go for supporting it. And that to me was something that, and actually, even on the Republican side, this is an issue that they really get behind. So it was they really get behind protecting the children and making sure laws are put in place. So it's a very bipartisan issue. I noticed that a lot of I'm sorry, you might hear sorry if you hear noise in the background. You might actually see that you'll be able to get more people in alignment and endorse than you think so than you would have thought.
Well, I mean, sorry, just before you answer, Nick, I mean, I certainly agree, and of course, I prompted in a sense that response, but I do have to admit, I have to ask the question. This isn't just generalized childhood sexual abuse and trafficking. It's this specific group of highly powerful people in the contemporary world we live in, and of course, that's where the barrier arises. But I still think we can shame them into supporting this
Yeah.
independent.
I agree with you because I think right now, nobody wants to be associated with the Epstein files. No one wants to be associated with a pedophile, a sadist, sexual sadist, or abuser. And right now, there's so much that has come out on people that I think that are shocking. So many people, even and this is not Epstein, but even recently, even with Cesar Chavez and what's come forth with that and abusing. I think it's at a place where accountability and responsibility is definitely something that we can really, really, beyond not even really to shame too much, but really hold people on the line for it and holding them on the line for protecting their communities, protecting, making sure their constituents want this justice. Everybody wants this justice. And so I think this is an opportunity really to get out and push and hold them accountable.
I'm willing to go to DC with any of you.
I'm down. I'm here already, so let me know.
Because this is something that we have to really get. And you're right, we have to shame our politicians into doing this, unfortunately, to do the right thing.
I will coordinate with both of you. I just got back, unfortunately, on Thursday. But we're going to go to the stack of questions in a moment. But Donna, if you have a question or a comment.
Oh, you guys are more optimistic than I am about after. Thanks, Nick, because some of that is so horrific, Nick. I don't know how you even spend as much time as you have. So on behalf of all the people who are appreciating what you've gone through to read it, thank you. But I think there's going to be resistance every time somebody thinks one of their donors is in that list, they themselves are in that list. A lot of people will unfortunately in very high places, as we see in what Nick is telling us, will say one thing, but when push comes to shove, they don't want anybody to look too deep. That's my feeling, that they would be afraid. But if we were willing to really put the pressure on them to shame them, yeah, I think you could make a difference. But we as progressives would have to be willing, and there would be blowback from some offices. But wouldn't it be good to know that, progressives?
Yeah, and yeah, it's a
Okay.
big democracy versus oligarchy thing too, you know.
Yeah, big
Um,
time. Big time. So thank you, Nick.
You're
uh,
welcome.
let's go to the stack out of courtesy with the people on the stack, but we are going to have to end the stack because we are going to have limited time. And I have a couple questions I will hold in my back pocket. Maybe someone else will bring them up. But Charisse, you're up first. Please unmute. Go ahead, Charisse.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
I can.
I can hear it.
All right. Um, as a trans person, I take extreme offense to the use of the term hermaphrodite. It's an age-old, obsolete trope that only further perpetuates the MAGA attitude that trans is only to emasculate men and masculinize women. It's akin to a mongoloid, homosexual, transvestite, negroid. Please do not use it on so many levels.
I'm not mega, and I was using a term that they used. So
Okay.
I'm sorry if you were offended by that, and I don't use that term.
Well, it
I'm
wasn't
using,
made clear, and
Okay.
hermaphrodite, as I said, it's an obsolete term. The current term is intersex, and
Okay.
that was an intersex. Intersex is having both male and female organs.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification, Charisse. That's probably new to many people on the call, and thank you for bringing it up. Go ahead, Nick.
No, I was just I was using their terminology. So I'm sorry if that offended you. I'm not a MAGA. You don't have to worry about that.
It's funny too because I am not doing certain things that I probably should do as executive director on these calls. I would, of course, be counseled to do. I didn't, and I should have at the top mentioned that this could be material that would trigger people, and I of course, should have done that. So I apologize to everybody for getting to do so. Nina Singer, please unmute.
Hi, can you hear me? Oh my God, this has been on my mind. Number one, thanks, Nick, for bringing this up. My question is about accountability. A lot of those people, I have certain people, I live in Florida in Palm Beach County. You know, I know about, lived here long enough in Florida where the Epstein files has been on my mind, weighing heavily. Know who is involved. We know Pam Bondi was involved. However, were there all these people that were subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee? Why weren't a lot of these people like that girl Susan or Sarah Keller, I think it was? Or we had a state attorney for Palm Beach County at the time, quote me if I'm wrong, anybody in Florida, from 2007 to 2009, named Barry Krischer. He was
Yes.
somewhat, what would they ever subpoenaed by the House Oversight, or will they be subpoenaed by House Oversight? And a lot of these people you mentioned were not even mentioned by the news media and the congressional people out there too. So that's my accountability question. When will they be brought to accountability? And of course, as President and Pam Bondi refused to say anything when it's a big cover up in my mind. So that's my big thing.
Thank you.
Okay. The case was taken away from the Palm Beach Police Department. They immediately wanted to arrest Jeffrey Epstein on 4 counts of unlawful sexual activity with a minor and 1 count of lewd and lascivious molestation. And they were going to arrest him, but it was taken away by Barry Kirshner, who you're talking about, the state attorney, and it was given to Lana Bell Lavick, who only called 2 of the victims. The Palm Beach Police Department at that point knew of 17 victims, but she only called 2 of them, and then she skewered them, and then the grand jury said that Jeffrey Epstein hadn't molested a single child. So when it comes to accountability, we're seeing these people lie before the Oversight Committee, and it's really been just horrific. And What we need is, as I said earlier, we need an independent congressional commission to bounce this outside. And we're going to have to fight for that. It's not going to be easy, but if we're ever going to get the truth, this is going to be it. And I just want to say one more thing on that accountability. This is going to be the best chance in our lifetimes. I do believe this, to turn this around, because our leaders are going to take us off a cliff. I really do believe that. I mean, the middle class is just disintegrating, and and if those laws continue to eat away at the middle class, we're not going to really have a middle class. And as Barry Josephson said, how do we get rid of poor people? I mean, that's how these people are thinking. So we need an independent congressional commission, and we got to hold our legislators' feet to the fire. It's not going to be easy. I mean, the labor rights movement wasn't easy. Civil rights movement wasn't easy. Women's rights movement wasn't easy. Gay rights movement wasn't easy. But these are things that we have to do.
Thank you for that. And that's much of what I'm trying to complete in what I'm writing for No King's Day on Saturday about the destruction of the American people's perception of the promise of America through the destruction of the middle class. John Seeley, please unmute.
Well, thank you for that. I note that, you've said some, should we say, uncomplimentary things about, not only the Mossad, but Jeffrey Epstein, but Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, and three, elements who are humongously powerful and not very accountable, and have great resources. I wonder what you're doing to protect yourself in this movement against the obvious dangers of AI warfare. Do you have a lawyer to make sure that things aren't posted on there that will, be false flags and get you into lawsuits, from innocent people who they, weave into this and so on? Is it going to be, is your website going to be carefully monitored to protect you from those dangers?
You're getting played off the stage, John. That's what happens when the music starts. So thanks, John. I think Nick gets the question. Nick, your response.
So we had one of our webinars was hacked a couple months ago, and we've had to completely change around our security, but we're very comfortable with our security at this point. And yes, indeed, we have an attorney. I mean, but I am not worried about any of those guys suing me. I mean, it's not, they're just too guilty. With the Franklin scandal.
Oh, so they could get someone else to sue you.
With the Franklin, yeah, the people were just too dirty to sue me, so I named them, and I've done that somewhat with the Epstein perps.
I want to say that the stack is now closed, so staff, please don't allow anybody onto the stack at this point going forward. And John, please mute, of course. And Patricia, you are up next. Please unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I'm very disturbed that I see that our government has become very, very good at gaslighting all of us for decades on many, many matters. And I believe the death of Jeffrey Epstein is another one. It's not just all of the reports that point to a murder, but it's also that autopsy pictures and autopsy descriptions of the man that was murdered there do not match Jeffrey Epstein. Have you looked into this matter? Because it is quite obvious that his eyebrows do not match, his nose doesn't match, his ears do not match, and the description of his genitals do not match. It's, they are gaslighting us.
Thank you, Patricia.
With the Jeffrey Epstein homicide, I have a tendency to believe that it was a homicide. And there are a number of reasons why I believe that, which I won't get into here because it'd take up a lot of time. But I don't focus on that. I focus on justice for the victims. I mean, that's the most important thing. I don't want to chase my tail around looking to see whether or not that's the real Jeffrey Epstein or suicide, homicide, stuff like that. Because justice is the most important thing here for the victims, and to make sure that all these girls, and the government says 1,200 of them, but I think there's probably more, weren't molested with impunity. I think that is the issue, and to clean out our government, which is a cesspool.
And of course, I will add, which I know you also, I'm sure, agree with, that it is protecting from this point forward and every point forward all young people in our society, particularly young women, but also young boys, young people who are trans too, but the abuse, the trafficking of women and of young women is at epidemic levels in the society, and we have to, as you said, take this example and make this the point where that is no longer the case. And we really need to do everything we can to make that the case. Um, and of course, your work has been so great in advancing that cause. Bob Cesario, please unmute.
Hey, Nick, this is I'm really fortunate to hear you. I'm knocked out by your work and applaud your passion and your expertise. I was in a recent meeting with you, I believe, the Greek call, I think last week, Monday, the Grassroots Election Protection Group. And during that call, you put a fabulous link in the chat about a searchable database of the Epstein emails that you said was much easier to access than the Justice Department one. Is it possible to put that link into the chat here so we could see that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob. And let's go over to Laura. Please unmute.
Hello, this is Laura. I had an interview question. Do you think our crops in Salinas are threatened by the toxic metal pollution from the oil industry expansion uphill? And did you see the USGS scientists 2025 groundwater sampling?
Is that a question for Nick?
Yeah, it's off topic. Let's get on to the next person. Love you, Laura.
Does that somehow relate to Epstein in some way? And then what we're talking about? I'm confused. Is the answer no to that, Mike? Oh well. Maybe write it out in the chat if it's connected to Epstein. Thank you. Brian, please unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say something that came out of the Epstein estate, which is that card that Trump put together for Epstein's birthday. He denied it based upon the signature. There's also the thing about him Epstein saying that Trump liked him on the young side. It seems like that one would be pretty easy to prove that, that that's his signature, and he does doodle. So I just wondered why that was not really hammered. That seems like enough right there to call for an impeachment.
There's more than enough to kick a lot of people out of our government right now. There's more than enough to indict the perpetrators. We know who the procurers and recruiters are. Sarah Kellen, who I talked about, is one of them. We know that they know all of it, all of it. There's at least 6 or 7 women that do. All we'd have to do is put them in front of a grand jury, and they'd be looking at, as I said earlier, child trafficking as a 15 to life sentence in the federal system. All we have to do is indict them on 10 counts of child trafficking, which wouldn't be difficult. And then they would roll over on the perps. It's a RICO case done with the mafia all the time. And we'd have to ensure that the victims who testified felt safe. But this would not be if our government had the will to do this, we could get a lot of people out of the government.
I'll follow up on those subjects in a little bit, but May Robinson, please unmute.
Hi. Yeah,
We can hear
I'd
you.
like to know what happened about those people who survived Epstein. What are they doing now? And how many people survived and grew up?
Well, a lot of them didn't. And Epstein was buying children in Eastern Europe, not renting them. He was buying them. Him and Jean-Luc Brunel. And there's hundreds of girls that are unaccounted for. The Epstein Victims Compensation Program was enabled victims of Jeffrey Epstein to sue and get settlements. And the government says 1,200 girls. I think it's higher, but only 225 girls or women, young women, applied for any kind of compensation. And 150 settlements were awarded, and 12 women declined any kind of settlement because if you got and this is another way that this is kept covered up. If someone got a settlement from the Epstein Victims Compensation Program, they had to sign a release that said that they would not sue any of their other perpetrators. So basically, what that program did was deny people of the right to sue other perpetrators and also make sure that there was no depositions, because a lot of information can come out with depositions.
You might be familiar with the piece of legislation that was signed into law by Joe Biden. It was had bipartisan support, and just through a quirk of fate, the lead testimony that brought about this legislation, which was about there would be no statute that
Yes.
memorandum.
No statute of limitation. Yeah.
Would that apply to that?
Yeah, there's no statute of limitation at this point.
So in other words, the what they signed saying they will not implicate or perpetrators, is that now irrelevant because of that legislation? I mean, they can't implicate the perpetrators.
Yeah, they can. Well, they can't sue. They can implicate them. They just can't sue them.
Oh, okay.
So,
but so that legislation doesn't impact suing.
No, you've got to sign that release. It's really, I mean, that release is ironclad. I've had an attorney that I work with look at it, and he's never seen anything quite like it.
But you can't pursue justice. You can't sue them.
Yes, I mean you can name them, but you just can't sue them.
Okay, yeah. Because by the way, just a friend of mine, Tatiana Spottiswoode, was the person who led the testimony, and she's right there behind Biden because of a horrible experience she had after I had gotten to know her a few years earlier. She got another job, and the job she got was with one of these like international finance people who groomed her and raped her. And I didn't even know the details till I heard the congressional testimony, but she's a real hero, of course. And while she is, leading her life, is an ally and an asset to support the kind of work that we're talking about doing on Capitol Hill. Great person. Tragic story, but a real hero. And encourage people to listen to the testimony and get pictures of the signing. So this can happen. Things can happen, you see. So Jim, please unmute.
I really agree with you on the Overton window in terms of how important this is for overall things that you described in terms of the destruction of our society and the out of controlness of the ruling elite right now. Also, I came to learn that this also Epstein's network and he was involved in Oslo. I'm looking at an article from Al Jazeera from February. Compromised peace, ? Oslo Accords figure deeply linked to Epstein Network. And when I learned about this, the person who was doing the podcast said that Epstein was not Mossad. He was above Mossad because of the level at which he was operating. And I don't think that's been really given enough awareness. And I look forward to seeing that happen because that's part of keeping the Overton window open.
Yes, two high-ranking Norwegian diplomats were involved with Epstein, and one of them was the former prime minister who tried to kill himself a couple of weeks ago when his name came out in the Epstein files. With the Mossad, I believe, as I talked about earlier, the the 2007, 2008 cover up was perpetrated by George Bush. And I don't think that they're doing that for anyone unless they're affiliated with the CIA. And I'm not saying that Epstein was just affiliated with the CIA, because I also think he was affiliated with the Mossad too. I mean, he put together, you can go to the Epstein Justice website and you can read some articles I put together about him and Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel. They put together some substantial arms deals. And so I think Jeffrey Epstein was working with both and I think that there's a very dark side of the CIA, and I think that there's a very dark side of the Mossad. And essentially what you have is the Genovese crime family and the Gambino crime family, and they generally work together because if they start killing each other, then that's problematic and it's going to hurt profits.
Yeah, and boy, I'm forgetting the gentleman's name. You've appeared on his podcast, which is also on YouTube a few times. He was a NSA whistleblower, I think.
John Kiriakou?
Yeah, Kiriakou. And you very succinctly responded to a question he had recently that whatever it was, CIA, Mossad, he obviously wasn't an independent actor, because then the blackmail wouldn't be effective, because whoever he's blackmailing were probably powerful enough to just kill him. They had to understand that he had something behind them that meant they could not do that and get away with it. So yeah, thank you. That was a great point of clarity that I had never really put that piece together. But I had read for years that he was tied in with in Israeli intelligence and different branches, and I think what's stacking up though is that he seemed to be an asset for the CIA as well, and possibly other countries' agencies too. John Time, please unmute.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hello? Okay,
Yeah.
so great work there. I late last night went to this video. There's a cover-up afoot. Senator White House unravels disturbing Trump, Epstein, and Russia ties. It's on YouTube with alert on it on the front of the video there. Really interesting. So, once again, it's 30 years, it's 40 years now of Reaganism, unlimited, too much influence by oil and lobbyists, too many tax breaks for the rich, the destruction of the middle class, destruction of labor. And then we have George Bush Jr. But, everybody rocks, and let's just stay confident. I think we have a real good chance of winning the midterms and everything. So, I mean, people are fed up. The MAGA's fed up. And, the Republicans, they call themselves, they never conserve anything. They don't, and they're not conservative. So I think the Democratic Party is conservative. We have conserved the middle class and this democracy since FDR, which they've been wanting to restore for years. Makes no sense. FDR was better. The rich class, real quick, was better off under FDR and his policies. Remember, he came from the rich class.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I would agree that they were better off under FDR than they had been under Hoover. They might differ between the current regime and FDR right now because they seem to be doing very well. Nicholas Bryant, if you want to respond to what John said there, and then I just have some final volley of questions for you.
Well, I mean, it's what I said earlier. I mean, our leaders are destroying the middle class. The really amazing, powerful thing about America is we had this robust middle class, and that's slowly dwindling. And as you saw with some of these emails, I mean, these guys want to get rid of poor people. I mean, it's not like a pipe dream of theirs. I mean, they're trying to figure out how to get rid of poor people. So I think that ultimately this is an issue where we've got to make a stand. And this is an issue that can bring the right and the left together too. Mm-hmm. Because I've talked to a lot of people on the right that were actually MAGA before this, and they've done 180. So I think that this is the only issue that can bring the right and the left together.
Well, I will disagree with you there, because I think if you pull the lens back enough, maybe this will be my contribution of a kind of insight that will resonate for yourself. If you pull the lens back far enough, we just have a divide and conquer of
Yes.
the American working middle class, as it were. And
Yes.
that's what's happened in the society effectively through propaganda or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, okay. So I got try to do these quickly. I have four. One just came up. You hear, Mossad, CIA, you now hear thrown into the mix Russian intelligence. Now, I know that Robert Maxwell, the father, had this complex thing where he had KGB assets. He was in the parliament. He was a Labor Party money. He owned a German publishing company. He had a publishing empire, owned the Sun. And he clearly, by the end of his life, was some significant asset for the state of Israel. But, apparently he might have done this thing where he helped negotiate Russian Jews uh, coming to Israel between the two intelligence services. Who knows? All of this is so opaque. But Russia and Epstein, I sometimes feel when I hear it, this sort of intentional misdirection going on from people who really don't seem to be doing anything except maybe trying to get clicks or obfuscate things. But I don't know.
I believe that Russia is a red herring for sure.
Yeah, there we go.
The emails talk about it because Ehud Barak wants to meet Putin. Israel wants to assassinate Assad, but they feel like they need a thumbs up from Putin.
Mm-hmm.
And Epstein couldn't reach out to Putin, but he knew some oligarchs who could talk to Putin. And Ehud Barak and Putin met, and Putin said, I don't want Assad assassinated. So the Israelis didn't assassinate him. And I think that if Epstein was so tight with the Russians, he just would have gave Ehud Barak an entree to Vladimir Putin. So yeah, I think that it's a red herring, and I don't put much stock in it.
Right. And it got three more questions. But someone just pinged me and said, I got to say this to everybody who's asking for Nick's email. I don't necessarily, I would fully understand if Nick was reluctant to share his email with people. Seems like an awfully busy fellow to begin with, but people are
I'll put it in the comments right now.
Okay, good. Yeah, people were asking for it. There you go. Okay, I want to go all the way back to the beginning of this, and there are these the sense that Epstein was doing international arms trading much earlier than most people pick up the Jeffrey Epstein story, maybe even before he was at Dalton, and that's in that through what he was doing then. He was coordinated with Father Maxwell. This is like just stuff that I've heard. Sometimes it sounds speculative. Sometimes it's people who seem to be the type of people who may know what they're talking about. What's your sense of that? That it wasn't that he met Ghislaine Maxwell after Robert Maxwell died, but that he actually had some kind of coordination and development as the kind of international man of mystery that Robert Maxwell was, and that Jeffrey Epstein was to become from Robert Maxwell. Is that clear on your radar?
That's a good question, because Ari Ben Menashe, he's an Israeli spy who's written a book. He's a very knowledgeable guy. I mean, he's a spy, so you never quite know.
Right.
But anyway, he has said Robert Maxwell plundered the pensions of the people that worked at his various newspapers, and he was blackmailing the Israelis for them to put the money into the pensions, to repatriate the pensions. And that's why the Israelis killed him. And there's an email from Epstein that says the exact same thing. That's why Maxwell got killed. Now, as far as arms dealing, I think Epstein started dealing arms, well, definitely with Douglas Leese in the early 1980s. Douglas Leese was the big times arms dealer, and they were using China to sell arms to Iran. But at the same time, Epstein was in business with Stan Pottinger, who had been an assistant U.S. attorney who covered up a lot of stuff. And he was the guy that laid down the foundations of Iran-Contra. So both of them were together. They rented the penthouse at the Maritz in St. Moritz in New York, and both of them were selling arms to Iran at that point.
So, I mean, this was not intended one of the four questions I had. So, do you think then that the international spy networks he's a part of, they just discern that the guy is a pathological pedophile, and they realize, aha, here we have our blackmail asset too? I mean, It's a totally speculative question, but I don't know if you've seen anything like that.
And in the Franklin scandal, there were two primary pimps. It was Lawrence King and Craig Spence. And both of them came from very, very humble working class families. King had a top secret, he had a top secret, whatever, in Thailand during Vietnam, and Spence was an ABC reporter. And my take on that is they both got busted molesting boys in Southeast Asia. And that's where they returned, because as soon as they came back to the United States, their careers skyrocketed. And we see that happening with Epstein. So at some point, I believe Epstein, well, I think Epstein showed that he was an ethical eunuch because of selling arms. I don't think that bothered him. I think, he was with Bear Stearns. He was probably interacting with BCCI, which is probably the dirtiest bank in the history of the world, that dealt with drug dealers and arms traffickers and also the CIA. So there are a number of nexuses in Jeffrey Epstein's life where he could have been turned.
Right. And actually, I'm just looking at his Wikipedia page, and I'm guessing actually it might, I don't know. Is he in Europe before he's at Dalton? He gets to Dalton at age 21. I think it is the first rumored appearances, I think, are right before he goes to Dalton. But again, that's just me, and I do not do this systematically. Anyway, Katie Johnson. There is video that you can still find online of what appears to be testimony from this woman who, this is a rather well-known case for people who may not be familiar with this. She was going to bring forward with the lawyer Lisa Bloom, is it?
Lisa Bloom, yeah.
Yeah, right before the 2016 election, through a press conference. And she had filed an affidavit, which is you can find, in which she testifies that she was forced to either give a hand job or a blow job to Donald Trump when she was 13 years old at an Epstein party that Trump attended. And it's, roughly speaking, the testimony matches up with what we all know about these things now, in terms of the sort of environment it describes. And she then somehow, according to her testimony to Bloom, they got to her right at that moment before the press conference, put the fear of God into her, and she refused to go public with a press conference and denied her previous statement. And by the way, the handler, right, Trump's longtime handler, Michael Cohen, not long ago, like about 6 weeks ago, he was appearing on a lot of, progressive platforms, but he was on like the Tara Palmieri show, and she asked him about it because he would have been Trump's handler at the time, and he clearly was befuddled and tripped over himself as he tried to give a non-answer answer, and then even contradicted himself later because he knew he looked bad, at which point he no longer was appearing on as many progressive platforms. So that there seems to be a there about them getting to this woman at that time. And this is again an accusation at the period where Trump and Epstein are super pals, like 1993, 94. But also that particular video testimony, Kyle Kulinski, for instance, ran the whole thing. I think you can still find it on one of his shows from a few months ago. Is that a real videotape of her?
Yes.
She's wearing what looks like a wig, and her face is blurred. Yeah.
She's wearing a blonde wig.
Yeah.
That case is, I jumped on it really early, and before she got Lisa Bloom as an attorney. I was told that she was threatened, but I was also told that Lisa Bloom deposited her in a hotel and sprung the press conference on her in the morning. So she wasn't,
okay.
I was told, now, I don't know if this is true, but I was told that she was being used for political expedience. And now I really wanted to talk to her. I mean, in the worst possible way. And I spent 3 years looking for her. I mean, it wasn't 24/7, but I spent 3 years looking for her, and I found her. And it can be so frustrating at times. She wouldn't talk to me. So, I mean, what she wrote in her affidavit definitely seems feasible. But if she would have talked to me, I mean, I've got a very good name in this area. And I said, please Google me and talk to me. You can talk to other stars. But yeah, she just wouldn't talk to me. It was very frustrating.
You know, I have to admit that I'm of a weird kind of two minds around the Schadenfreude of running Trump out of office because of, look, clearly he wants this stuff covered up, and according to people who really seem to know the guy, he doesn't give a damn about anybody else on this earth except himself, and maybe Ivanka because it's some kind of like ego, you know, reflection of himself in some way. I don't know, but yeah, he's absolutely has had taken a brutal attitude to people who were once close to him. Massive narcissist, destroying the country. But JD Vance is next in line, and he is Peter Thiel's placement. So you know, um, the damage is going to be done one way or another, and we have to build a popular movement to resist it. But here's the final question I have. My sense of the framework of the time is that Jeffrey Epstein and his international sex trafficking ring piggybacked on Donald Trump's international teen beauty contest apparatus. I could be completely wrong on this. So correct me. This is what I'm asking him. Do I have this time incorrect? Because Brunel is out there, and he is an asset and an associate of both of theirs. Donald Trump is setting up, this is all known, this network for his beauty contests, including teen beauty contests. Teen beauty contests. And that happens before Epstein has his setup. And that Trump's infrastructure for what he sets up is replicated by Epstein, with Brunel assisting both of them as they develop these things. Is that roughly accurate? And if so, and Trump is obviously participating in this coordination with Brunel and his best friend at the time, Epstein, I mean, that is beyond game over. Even if you know there was not direct sex trafficking through the official Trump channels, I mean, he's setting up an international sex trafficking ring for Jeffrey Epstein, assisting in it.
That's a good question. I mean, Trump and Epstein were best of friends in the 90s, best of friends. And that's when Epstein was given power of attorney over Wexner. So finances weren't a problem for him. Brunel worked very closely, much more closely with Epstein than he did with Trump. So I think that it's important. I mean, and you know, I've talked about the Independent Congressional Commission a number of times, and it's so important that we have a body that actually investigates these things. Because
and of course Wexler has his own such apparatus, which is Victoria's Secret, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, and Epstein was using that also, Victoria's Secret.
Right. See, I could be completely wrong about that time, but I think some people speak so authoritatively, and I don't trust it and need multiple sources. And even if I've heard that in 2 or 3 places, I have not systematically documented it, so it could be wrong, completely wrong.
Brunel got going. Adnan Khashoggi, who was a big time arms dealer, he worked with Jeffrey Epstein, and this is more towards like 84, 85, and he was also a blackmailer. He had a stake in Elite Models, and so did Brunel. And Khashoggi was a blackmailer, and I think now I could be completely wrong here, but I think that Epstein's business relationship with Khashoggi and ultimately where he met Brunel, I think that might have been where he took off.
Well, certainly, right. In Trump's
in that time.
Trump's teen beauty pageant, the one where there's all that video of him sitting at a table judging these young girls for this beauty contest. I think Brunel is sitting at the table with him. So they did work together.
Yeah, they knew each other and worked with each other. Yeah.
And apparently, again, how Trump gets the channel to this is what I understand. There's some assistance from Brunel, and at least maybe something got structured more officially overseen just by Epstein that followed from that. Maybe, who knows? Again, the independent commission, when you're watching this in future years, please look into this and let me know. But that has to be the final question. The independent congressional commission. What does it take to form one? And a majority of Congress, a majority of a committee, subcommittee.
No, it would be. It doesn't require presidential signature.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with the executive branch. It requires a majority in the House and majority in the Senate.
Both houses, okay.
And then they have to vote for an independent congressional commission. And independent congressional commissions often use non-government personnel.
Right.
And that's what we need. We have to bounce this out outside of our corrupt political system.
And who would be on such a commission? Would potentially Nick Bryant be on such a commission?
I think that Nick Bryant would certainly be a good guy to be on such a commission. But what we would want is people that are concerned about the truth. I mean, the way that these guys are lying, overtly lying to the Oversight Committee, and the Oversight Committee's doing, I mean, the Oversight Committee could have 100 perjury charges against these people by now. And so, and Robert Garcia even came out and said that Les Wexner was lying, but he's not being charged with perjury. So we cannot allow our polluted political system to take care of this. We have to get an independent congressional commission. That's when I formed this with some friends of mine, we were thinking, how can we do this? What's going to work? And we did a lot of homework, and that's an independent congressional commission is the only thing that's going to work here.
Well, we have to hope then to have majority of votes for this as a result of the midterms. I think Thune in his private time may be sympathetic, but Johnson is just a robot and will block everything, even though it's closer in the House.
He has two daughters.
Who does?
Thune.
Thune?
Yeah.
Well, of course, Thune doesn't necessarily even have the votes, though. If he was he'd have Tillerson himself. That would just get him to 49. You need 50.
And he's too weak. He probably wouldn't do it, but he's got two daughters.
Yeah. Well, he might be stronger after the House is won if he's still the majority leader and it's like 50-50 or 49-50. There won't be Tillerson anymore, but if it's 50-50, and he might be strong enough, and then other people may join him and give him backup, because this is, as we said, this is something that will.
Tom Daschle says Thune is more of an institutionalist for the Senate. So.
No. I mean, Trump was not happy when he was made majority leader. There were enough Republicans there to vote for him against Trump's will as he was incoming. Hey, Nick Bryant, this has been incredible. Thank you so much, and thank you for your stamina. Yeah,
just awesome. Thank you,
everybody. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch for sure.
Yes, for sure. And you have my contact information.
Yeah,
always railing. But everybody, do check out EpsteinJustice.com. Correct?
Yes. And on Tuesday, we're having a webinar, and I'll be interviewing a couple of Epstein victims.
And what time on Tuesday?
It's 8:00 Eastern time.
In the morning?
No, nobody wakes up that early.
That's true. And we actually,
it would be 8 p.m.
We probably will not promote it because we have a national fundraiser for our endorsed candidate in Massachusetts 1st District.
Okay.
So, but we will do that. We'll get out the word a little bit and maybe in back channels, but we'll definitely promote any event you're having that does not conflict with one of ours.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, no, look forward to working together, and thank you, Eileen Proctor, for putting us in touch.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Eileen.
Yes. Well, thank you, Nick Bryant and Mike Fox. I'm going to wrap this up for the recording, a very long recording. but we will separate out the section of the town hall that featured Nick Bryant and post it separately. And so both on that recording and for the whole town hall, I want to thank everyone for attending. We do these every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, and we cover different subjects and have related featured guests. And right now, of course, in primary season, we have a lot of PDA endorsed candidates running for federal office as well. So thank you, everybody. I want to thank Donna Smith, Christian Nunez, Nick Bryant, of course, Melissa Bird, Dave Alba, and as always, Mike Fox and Donna Smith. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody on the PDA team supporting in the background. We'll be back next week with another town hall. Bye-bye, Christian. Bye-bye.